a nice blank page in front of us. Always terrifying, right? All right. Forgot that. One more thing. How are we doing tonight, everybody? Put out the orange pencil. Let's do some sketching. I don't know what I'm sketching yet, but I need to go get the comic pages scanned in. I haven't done that yet. So, probably do that in the morning. But that's kind of the plan. All right. Good evening, everybody popping in. I tend to prefer warm colors, but I try out different things. So like this is a new thing I'm trying with is all lead. It's a Kohinoor. It's a Czech brand, I think, is where they're from. Yeah, Czech, right there. But I tend to lean into warm colors like reds and oranges, burnt siennas, burnt umbers. Got a box of Prismacolors around here somewhere. Actually, probably just down there to my side. So, but if you've got good suggestions for other things, I'm always open to hear that. I've got some, lead pencils from I think Uniball that are colored pencils. I'm working on paper. I just like to do some sketches, maybe some little kind of character thoughts I've had recently for the or some character build ideas. So I've been doing the little comic test things. I've never done those before, and so the pencils are done. I just have to go get them scanned in so I can ink them. Do that probably in the morning. I was going to do today, and then some things came up. Need the larger format scanner that they have at my office. The office I never go to. So the weekend, so I figured go in there when it's quiet. Won't be any students around on the weekend probably in the building. At least not the Sunday morning. That's hard to say. I've done some world building projects in the past. Mostly they're not typically story based. The current one is, well, I started off with some ideas of kind of what I like the world to be, and then I've had some stories kind of come up in my head as I've been working. But for me, it's usually just finding like a main thing to design things around. So like a number of years ago, I had one going where everything was based around the number 6. So 2s and 3s worked for that as well, but mostly 6s. And so everything had like 6 legs or 6 segments or 6 of this or that or hexagonal or whatever in there. And that kind of helped me keep it designed around one singular idea. And then the current one was this Bramble World thing. I was trying to come up with something new to do, and I was thinking, what if everything was kind of the tech was all kind of plant based, and there was a reason for it, like maybe humans had found this planet, and everything there was the planet itself was kind of this plant based planet. Looks like a giant tangle of branches from outer space, and maybe there's whatever is on there is going to influence the reason why this technology works the way it does, and so everything's kind of expanded from that. And then as I've been working on that, I've come up with some ideas for stories and things that are kind of built into that. So what are the characters? I've come to the place I'm thinking, well, what's the characters like, and what's the situation like? What is it? What is it they want to change? And so, as that's happened, I've kind of figured out some things along the way, which put into a script, and then I had some initial. Oh, there's someone. No, it's the same person. All right. but as that's happened, I've had some ideas over these stories, and then I kind of realized one of the stories I was coming up with, which I still would like to do, is just a little too complicated. Because especially since I've never done any kind of comic book work seriously before, maybe a little bit when I was like a teenager or whatever, but it was never like a major factor. And then, so I thought I'd do some test things, but I also kind of decided I want to simplify the story down a lot. Well, I think you just don't worry about anything until you find things that really fit in with what you're trying to do. Like I've got a whole sketchbook behind me that's almost full. I think it's like 80% full. Which is one of the reasons I want to go and get things scanned in. It's just full of thoughts, and so nothing has been really laid down. And for me, part of this was doing just because I wanted to get some new portfolio pieces, and wanted something original to do that with. And so I put together those. I just want to have some kind of theme to build my portfolio around. So it wasn't so much I wanted to do something that could be some kind of product like a graphic novel or art book or whatever. It was just mostly just for a portfolio project. And so I was mostly just putting together a list of things I wanted to have for that portfolio. And so I wasn't too fixated on it being entirely coherent. But I would say as you're working on things, you'll probably have ideas for your story, and as long as whatever world you're building works with that story, then it should be okay. I tend to, it's like, when it comes to like books, and I tend to prefer more of the kind of the loose systems, like you see with like, more of the systems where you see the effect rather than having to describe all of the rules about how things work. Which is what I always liked about the Tolkien books is, they always felt good from that point of view to me, just because they weren't always throwing a bunch of rules at you. You were just seeing the effects of those rules in action. Yeah, sometimes if you're having trouble coming up with your own theme, it's okay to take other people's ideas. If like there's like an older game, I think I was watching some older Fang Zhu videos, and he was kind of talking about that, where he likes to take like obscure video games from when he was a kid, which would probably be the same time when I was a kid. I think he's just a couple of years older than I am, and he likes to take obscure games like that and repaint the scene, so kind of using their general color and layout, but making it look like something he would do. And I think it's somewhere in the number 60 of his videos where he did one of those paint overs. My whole head needs to come down here, not so high up. And so he did a paint over, well, not a paint over, but he took a scene and kind of recreated this video game scene from his in his style. So it doesn't really erase that well, but maybe a little bit, in order to kind of do that portfolio. So that's a perfectly valid thing to do, as a way of kind of exploring the things that you want to do. There we go. That would be much better. But so that could be a really good way of, if you haven't done it much before, just do something like that, and while you're working on your own original idea, let that kind of sit in the background and see how what things are important for making, a product's world work. So if there's something more specific you want to do later on, that becomes a lot more possible, I think. It's like, I give my students in my university, I give them a very, very specific project, and they have to build everything around this project, right? Because that's part of my job as a teacher, is to give them something that they can engage with in a way that gets them closer to their goals. And so having some kind of consistent project where they're not just designing a bunch of random stuff, but building it around a very particular concept. And a lot of that originally comes from that Skillful Huntsman book. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that. Are you familiar with that book, The Skillful Huntsman? But it's a great example of a world building project. You can still get it I think it's in paperback these days. But I don't mind pulling it off the shelf if you haven't seen it. You haven't read it? Oh, okay. Let me grab it. I don't mind meandering a little bit. I'm just doodling, so let's see. Where is my copy? There it is. There it is. Let me get the sketchbook out of the way so we can sit there. But this is the Skillful Huntsman, and there's a couple of things. First of all, this book came out when I was just about ready to graduate, and I was actually doing my own little world building project, and it turned out what I was doing was very similar to what, let me back this up so we can get a bigger view, what they did in this book. And so it kind of came at just the right time for me. It could have been nice if it had come out a little bit earlier. I don't think you can get it in hardcover anymore, but I think it's still available in paperback. But what it is, it's a book from, it's that Design Studio Press company. So they do a bunch of really great books that deal with concept art and movie art and game art and that kind of thing. Mostly started, I think, by Scott Robertson. He was an instructor, a professor at the Art Center out in California, which is a really big design school. And he did this project, and what this project is, it's these three students. It's all their work inside. If none of his work is inside, and there are three graduating seniors, and this was their senior project. And so, that's one of the big things I like about this book is that this is all student work, right? It's pretty good, right? I think they're all still active in the concept art area, but basically what they do is they take a Grimm fairy tale. So this is the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, the Skillful Huntsman, and they list off the characters and the scenes, and this is where this kind of sketching got popular. This no-tan silhouette sketching is probably a lot from this book, made it very, very popular. But they come up with a list of the characters and the scenes and locations and equipment and vehicles, and they kind of set it in their own little whatever kind of situation they want. So whether they want it to be science fiction or fantasy or whatever, they do that. And this book kind of shows them going through the process of developing all of those locations. So they start off talking about the huntsman. What's he going to be like? And he has to go out and kill some giants to win the princess. And a lot of the work in here is actually done in traditional media, like pencil and pen. There's Photoshop stuff too. Digital was still relatively new when the book came out. So a lot of the drawings in here are actually done with pencils rather than on the computer. But yeah, it's always a top recommendation for me. In terms of books to look at, and it has little blurbs on the side about what were they thinking about when they were doing it, and then the teachers' comments about their thoughts. And so it's a whole. You could spend, like I said, this is a senior project. So they probably spent most of their senior year working on this project. There's marker drawings over here. They're really nice. Photoshop setup over here. They've got some other interesting processes in here where you could like take one of their drawings and then they copy it, on a copy machine, and then they put like graphite dust on it. So again, it's one of the older books on concept art that's out there. It's like has decent information in on like what to do and how to think about things. It's not like a step-by-step thing. It's more of them, they lay out what they did and what they were thinking about when they were working on their drawings. There's a small amount of process stuff where they comment on photo bashing or using Photoshop or back then Corel Painter. I think they mentioned that in here. But it's just really nice layouts and designs. Equipment stuff. So they have an air gun. It wasn't a gun in the story, but they want to have for their thing. And then they make a big deal in here and talking about showing how things work. So that's the charge for the air gun, and then when they break the tail, it scares it and it puffs up real big with air, and then they attach it to the gun, and then that's when it's drained. So it's that's really important in concept art stuff, is showing how things work. Then you get into the giants. So there's some silhouettes, and then there's some drawings over here. A lot more drawings, but color variations and more drawings. These look like might have been charcoal drawings or something, pastel drawings. But I think everything in here is still 100% valid. The only thing maybe they don't go into that's more modern is like 3D stuff. I think usually you want to have like 10 to 15 finished pieces. If you're doing concept art, though, you do want to show a lot of this kind of exploratory work. It's drawings and how you got to where you got to in your work. So I probably put at least 30 or something in there. We did do at school I met, we were interviewing for some adjunct people, and we had an interview the other day with a guy who had 118 pages in his portfolio, which was way too many. Hello, Warley Arts. Who's Warley Arts? Are you familiar? Do I know your name? But over there on, I guess, Kick. So, and here's the princess. So there's the subject of their pursuits. Those same kind of things. Just it's more silhouettes and facial studies and costumes and all that. Here's the captain, the evil captain that I guess is in competition with the huntsman. What's that person going to be like? So just showing some variations in their drawings. And the Cook Hut, I guess, is a place where they meet the princess eventually. So just literally just taking the locations and the people and turning them into concept art. So if you're having a hard time, but there's maybe there's subject you really like. You like, I don't know, Blade Runner stuff or Star Wars stuff or Lord of the Rings or some video game aesthetic. And there's the crew right there. But then if you take that and then you mix it with a fairy tale, you're 80% of your planning is already done. You just need a production list of what you want to put into your portfolio, and that's kind of how you get to it. So I am thirsty today. Yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing. I've just had my own idea for a world, and then I've been coming up with ideas for stories and all of that. let's see, how are we doing for our proportions? So head to xiphoid process to belly button to crotch. That gets us an 8-head figure. The 8-head would be like right here. Yes, that should be okay. I'm going to try doing a little slimmer on this one. But yeah, so that's what I would start with. I would definitely recommend that book, the Skillful Huntsman, and yeah, it's a book I still refer to. It's a book I show my students at my university. I don't know how many of them actually pick it up. I'd almost require it to a certain degree, but I never like to require books. In general, just as like a general thing. I think that's fine. It depends on the class. I just there's just so many books that that I pull from for every class that I've ever taught, that it kind of makes it hard for me to say, well, buy these 2 books or this 1 book for the whole semester. And I'm like, well, I like this one for this thing, and I like this one for this other thing, and I like. And then I know how students are about money and supplies and all that, and so it makes me hesitant to require that. But maybe I should. Maybe it would be easier on me, because I usually like to think of the course materials I pack into the course website as the textbook for my university students. So they should be able to find everything there. And mostly coming from me, along with some other additional sources, but I want them to feel like they're definitely getting something original. And hopefully it kind of exhibits to them that I know what I'm talking about most of the time. So, yeah, that's what I would do. It's a pretty simple idea. You just, you find a fairy tale that you like, and you just make a list. Like, I want to do, 3 characters. I wanted to, 4 different locations. Hopefully there's a monster in there to design for fun. And that gets you that gets you a lot of work and a lot to do over a period of time. It could be, it doesn't have to be a grim fairy tale. It can come from any other culture. You could pull from folklore from different countries or different parts of the world that maybe you're interested in that you don't have that much information about. So it kind of becomes an opportunity for a little bit of research and exploration into things that you don't know that well. It's like I have a student who's doing some stuff based off of Babylonian gods, and I don't know much about Babylonian gods. Probably just ink this as a sketch. I could. This paper is really tough. I could do watercolor over the top of that. I'm exploring some inking techniques too. So like I've got some sponges over here, and some styrofoam and some other things to kind of play with a little bit. Along with, I finally got a Huntsman 102 pen nib. I've been using these Japanese mapping pen nibs that I thought were similar, but having kind of picked up one of these Hunt 102 ones now, Hunt 102 is very flexible when compared to the Japanese ones that I thought were the same. And which I think I like a bit better than the Japanese ones. So that's kind of the thought here. Obviously I've got all the digital things I'm doing. So actually I'm working on some 3D concepts for this whole Bramble project. Having a bit of a problem on one of them though recently, so I'm waiting to figure out how to fix that. Get some help on that. Some tools I like to use from what's it called? Geometry Abayev has a set of concept art 3D tools that I like, but I did something I think to it, so hopefully they can fix it for me. Something terrible I did. I don't know what it is though. But the guy who kind of makes the actual plugins for Blender is really helpful and makes things happen, which is great. Even on the weekend, I just, if I have a problem, I'll just toss something in there. I think, oh yeah, maybe someone will get to it in a couple days or whatever, and then he pops in and with an answer or a question and to help out, which is great. It was looking pretty cool. Hopefully I can get it fixed. It's mostly just a matter of finishing it off with the tools. I could probably find another way of working on it, but I'd like to make sure that tool isn't broken. Designing some of the what I call totems in this Bramble World thing, and teach at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. So I've taught a lot of other places, like I've taught with Ringling up until last year when I left there to come here. Taught at SCAD, probably is probably the more famous school. Ringling's pretty famous too. I taught at their Hong Kong campus for SCAD for a few years. SCAD's kind of a miserable place though, so I don't generally recommend it. Hello, Crafty Sad. Over there on the kick side, I guess. Or on YouTube. I think, no, you're on YouTube. Never mind. Same with Worley. But, I do teach a little bit independently. I have like a little teaching site that I have set up called myartprofessor.com. And some of the branding I have online. Which I've been really bad about promoting the last couple of years just because I've been busy. It's perspective drawing lessons and things over there. But with the concept course I've put together here, I should probably look at kind of updating all of my lesson materials that I've been using here and at the school, and then get it kind of organized to put it into the where did I think my favorite place to teach was? I don't know. It's hard to say I would definitely say SCAD's the least favorite place I ever taught. But I liked living in Hong Kong when I was there because I was at that campus that they used to have, which is why I stayed the 4 years I did. I had an opportunity to leave to go to a different school after I'd been there for about a year and a half, and maybe I should have taken it, but I don't know. It's in Detroit, and I don't want to live in Detroit, even if the school was probably better. I really enjoyed, what I was teaching at Ringling, but and the people I was working with, for the most part, had some disagreements with them over the whole AI business. They were very excited about it, and I told them that I didn't think it had any place in our education process because it's just all it says is that we don't believe in the students and their potential, and they didn't agree with me. That wasn't why I left, but I really enjoyed working with the people in that department. I thought they were all really interesting and smart and thoughtful. I think they were just blinded by what they perceived to be their role in the future. But it was the motion design department there, and I really liked the people and the size of the department. I got to know all the students really well, and it was interesting for me to learn new things over there because it's not something I was familiar with, and so seeing what the students were working on and what the professors were doing in the classes that weren't the ones that I was dealing with. I was teaching them drawing. It was all really interesting. They have a lot of really great professors overall that work at this school, like over in the illustration department, and animation and game art, that are all very qualified, high-level people. But the weather there was killing me. Like the climate in Florida is just humid and hot all year round. A little bit less so in the winter, but it doesn't last very long, and you're probably still going to sweat when you go outside. And you had that in Hong Kong too, but it was not nearly as it was. It's much more interesting to be in Hong Kong, right? I was in Asia, and I'd not lived there before, ever really been there before, and so new culture, new language, new everything. So that was at least I had that, even if I didn't like the school I was working for. And then, so that was that school. The current one I'm at, though, it was a unique opportunity. It's a different kind of teaching position than I've ever had before. It's a research position, and so the idea is for me to be professionally active, and in exchange for that I don't have as many classes, and so with that I can pursue have more time for more professional type work is the idea. And so I only teach 2 days a week, 2 classes per semester, and then I'm really encouraged to pursue other things. And they have tenure here, which I can get after a certain amount of time, depending on how the quality of my research goes. And then yeah, no problem. Have a good evening, assuming where you're at is evening and not morning. And start a project. Just if you're trying to figure out a story, don't be too picky. Maybe just pick a story you've not read before or you're not familiar with, and that can be a good way to start. So that way you're not too finicky about it, and maybe you end up doing this type of project a couple times. But don't let it. Don't be too hesitant about it. Just start something. You can always start a new one. Where was I? Let's see. Not sure how I feel about blue over that color. Red works a lot better. Hello, Lily Afton. Appreciate that. Do let me know if there's any questions or comments. Oh, I've already killed this nib. It's been a couple days. Ugh, too much ink. Come on, ink. I just made a big mess down there too. I think this nib is going out pretty quicker than I thought it would. Thank you there, Kale. Just put my fist right into the leg there, so we got a nice big blotch down there, but I think we'll see if we can't figure that out. I think my nib is starting to feel its age. So yeah, it's been using it for a few days. Yeah, just playing around with some of the costume things I'm looking at. I saw like these kind of Baroque shorts, and then I stuck my hand in the ink, which is not optimal. So I've been told anyway. No, it's just my own little just a sketchbook thing here. But yeah, for the larger project, I think I was playing around with that. Hello, Taryn over there on the YouTube side. Yeah, one of the things I've kind of ignored over most of my concepting thing is character design. Figure drawing is something I've taught for a long time, but never focused very much on actual kind of the narrative aspect of coming up with characters and all of that. So made that a big focus of the last year. So costume and emotions and all of that's been something I've wanted to improve. Practice it in humanoids, like the comic book thing, or isn't that the popular French comics or something? Comic company. Yeah, for me it's just kind of funny because I've spent so much time doing figure drawing, but I've never really done character development of any kind. Oh, your DVD game, I see. So I know there's like the Humanoids publisher, right, out in there in Paris or something, right? I think they're French. I feel like they're French. So what's a tabaxi? Ah, cat people. Not dog people, apparently. Mm. I think everybody goes through an Egyptian phase. It's such a crazy culture, right? That compared to how culture has changed over the last 2,000 years. You compare their 2,000 years of culture there, that ancient Egyptian world, and it's weird how it just kind of like didn't change. At least not as much as we see our culture changing and technology and all that. They just kind of stayed the same ish. And then of course just the architecture and the mythology and the images and all that, so much of that preserved, um, for such a long time. So yeah, it's kind of that intermediary period between the first civilizations that we know of out in Babylon, basically, in Iraq, to the development of the Western civilizations through Greece and the Italians or Romans. And so they're kind of in that in between period. So there's something very kind of ancient about them, but modern too. That I think also kind of gets our imagination because it's just so long ago. And they were building these insane things out of stone in the middle of the desert. Which I think also just catches people's imaginations. Yeah, and it was all based around how the river moved, and the dry seasons and the flooding seasons, and um, and then compared to other cultures at the same time in different parts of the world, we just don't know as much about them because a lot of things disappear into the jungle. Like if you look at the North America and the world we had in North America and South America, that was completely separate from those Western developments for so long. And a lot of that's what's interesting about the North American stuff, or the North and South American stuff, the New World cultures, is that when the Europeans showed up, they were basically living in the same Stone Age that a lot of the ancient Egyptian stuff was in. and they'd never gotten into really serious metalworking. No steel, no bronze, no ironworking. A little bit with gold and some precious metals that are easy to work, but they were living essentially in the Stone Age. Some, still as consider hunter-gatherers. And then a lot of their, culture got obliterated just by disease, and then swallowed up in the jungles in South America. And which is, it's interesting how different it was. Sounds like the dog is snoring. Yeah, it's like I've read what's it called? There was it was read about stories basically where the conquistador, Ponce de Leon, he traveled through what we call the South here in the United States. So the area that's now Mississippi and Alabama, Louisiana. He traveled that area, and he reported, and that was a long time before people were before the British and the French and all those people settled in those areas. He was there long before they were, and he saw, as he was traveling, he would say, he commented on his letters back or his documents or whatever, that he would see village after village after village, just tons and tons of people living down there in these different villages that they would pass by. And but when settlers from Europe arrived, 200 or 300 years later, there was nobody there. They were all gone. Probably due to smallpox and the other diseases that the Europeans brought. There were just so many people, and then poof, all gone within a couple hundred years. There's a book I read. It's I think it's called 1491, and it's about the. It's kind of a book about what life was like in North America the year before, from what they know, the year before Columbus arrived. And they estimate that around 95 to maybe up to 99% of the population disappeared just because of the disease. And that's what made it possible for the conquistadors to conquer these much larger armies. I think Cortez, he had 500 troops or something he brought with him, 500 soldiers or 500 men. He would conquer armies of like 5,000. In addition to having horses and steel and armor and all that, everyone was just sick. And then there were some cultural things too that were odd that he was able to take advantage of. One of which was, I think it's the Inca. But basically, the Inca all considered their rulers to never die. They would just be a new person would take over, but a priest would take care of the previous ruler's body. And so if you were able to capture one of those dead rulers, you could demand a lot from the other nearby tribes. He also would kind of negotiate with other tribes to convince them to work with him in order to conquer their neighbors. And so he did those kinds of things too, where he would get people to work against each other. Um, so that's I guess clever, but I forget there was some Spanish priest he went through. He was he's pretty unique in this, but he was very very powerful, and he went through and destroyed a lot of the they're called codices, which was the kind of the history of the culture in South America and Central America, where they kept everything on these kind of flat wood sheets, and it was kind of written out like a comic book kind of thing, whereas it was just pictures. But he went through and destroyed all of them that he could get a hold of, and so we lost a lot of their written down history to such a degree that I think they haven't been able to even translate all of the languages that they had down there. Some of it's just gone. I think that they've kind of gradually been able to decipher some of it, but there was a similar situation with the Egyptians. Like nobody, when they started really looking at the Egyptian culture in the West, in the modern era, nobody could read anything that was written on the walls until Napoleon accidentally found that what's it called, the name of that stone that has the 3 languages on it. It has Egyptian, it has Greek, and I forget the third one, but Rosetta Stone. Yeah, well, the trick with trouble with Egyptian is it's actually a written phonetic language like English to a certain degree, or Spanish or whatever. And so and then they don't have vowels. Yeah, the Rosetta Stone. That's what I was trying to remember. But until they found that, nobody had any idea what the Egyptians had up on their walls. People had all kinds of theories about what it was about. But up until the 1850s or whatever, nobody had any idea what was going on. Well, most ancient languages didn't have vowels. Like ancient Hebrew didn't have vowels in it. I guess they just figured the letter sound was enough for them to know what it meant. Yeah, at least I think the Egyptian stuff they've mostly figured out in terms of what they have left. South America and North America especially is just really challenging. They've got these ancient stone paintings, some of which I've seen. You can go see, you can go out to Utah or Arizona or other places and actually see them. But a lot of them, they have no idea what they mean. What are they for? What do they mean? What's the intent? They have no idea. There's no place to start. There's no context for what they could mean. It's just it's completely opaque. So it's impossible to find out. But yeah, I think the real trick is those cultures we don't even know exist yet that used to exist, and what do we do about that stuff that's completely gone? It's like they're like the North American natives, or the North and South American natives. They actually wiped out a civilization that existed before them, that had been there for a long time before. They completely got rid of them, as far as we can tell. Because there was two major migrations to North America, as far as I understand. That we know about, anyway. But didn't hear that last thing. I don't remember what I said, so I wasn't listening either, apparently. But it happens. Go off on something and no one else was listening, then I didn't hear it either, maybe. Yeah, I go a lot of tangents in my classes, so um, it happens more often than it probably should. Good, getting everybody popping in. Like the color here is weird, like that should be red. There we go. Yeah, I've decided it's finally time. I've had this iPhone for 5 years, so I went ahead and upgraded to the new one. I'm waiting for it to come in the mail. Probably Monday. So that should be interesting. The first step will be figuring out how to turn off all the Apple Intelligence that they've decided to put onto the newer phones. My current one's too old to actually get all of that, but I think you have to actually turn on the AI stuff on the iPhone, which is at least, it's better than having it on by default. So I did look into that before I picked it up. I was like, can you turn off all this stuff that I don't want? And they're like, the things they're showing on there that you can do with it is like find photos in your library by typing in keywords, and it'll look for things that match that. And it's supposedly, from what they were saying, it's basically your own individualized AI system, or LLM, whatever the appropriate term is there. And it's like, come up with custom emojis. And it's like, I don't want any of this. Doesn't do me any good. I think they showed a video of them like taking a picture of a place, and then it showed you all the information about when it was open. And I was like, well, you could just, walk 2 feet over and look at the sign on the door. It's right there. I've kind of often found that, probably heard me say it before, but I like to say that a lot of times technology is convenience with extra steps. And I keep seeing that happen over and over and over again, where it's like, here's this new thing that, sure, it gets you, I guess, more information, but so it's not like, I'm going to open up my phone and it's going to have my whole week figured out for me based off past activities and all I have to do is kind of set things in motion, and then it'll be all taken care of, and won't that be great? It'll answer all my emails for me, but I don't know. It's like it's like at the school there. One of the people there wrote an email for an event that we were doing, and he was using AI to write the email for him, but he had to go back and spend a lot of time editing it to make it, to verify it with people to make sure it was working okay for what we needed it to work for, and I'm looking, I'm like, oh, it should just take 2 minutes to write this, and it's not that big of a deal. Just seems like it's a lot of work to not to do things in the fast way. It seemed like it just made it harder. Is that thunder out there? Hopefully it won't bother the dog too much. Yeah, I didn't comment anything back to him, but I was just like, I'm sitting there looking at him like, why would you waste your time doing that? Like it's not that hard to do it. And this person's actually very, I think, but his thing is like he likes to. There's a lot of people like this where they're basically like, it's a new thing. I want to I don't want to be left behind. I want to try things out, make sure I understand them and how they work, and see where I can use them. He wants to kind of accept that these things can be really helpful and beneficial. And it could be other things than AI. Hello, friendly free fire. Hi over there, friendly fire. Over on the YouTube side. And I tend to be on that more kind of skeptical, negative side of things. It's like we were having a conversation. I was showing this book, The Skillful Huntsman, and this person had a question about portfolios, and I looked at a portfolio this week where a guy had 118 things in his portfolio. And I'm like, that's not a portfolio. It's like everything you've done. I'm glad to hear that, friendly fire. It's like, simplify that down. We don't need to see everything you've done. It's got, it will probably, someone we were looking at hiring, we probably will hire him. He's got a lot of great stuff, but I kind of want to yell at him about his portfolio being so large. It's like, if we're looking at a bunch of people's work, and you just need to know that you've got skills, and if you've got enough of it, you don't have to show everything in your portfolio. You just need enough to show consistency and how you think. But I was looking at that, and there's pieces in it that made me doubt this person's skills, because it includes so much stuff. He hadn't included those pieces. I'm like, oh yeah, perfect. No question is asked, right? But luckily, it's the same person I was talking about. That he's a bit more open, and so he's looking at it from a different point of view. And I tend to look at things more skeptically. But I'd like to think I look at what I think more skeptically too. Taking off there, friendly fire. Got to finish your drawing. Appreciate that. But so yeah, I don't think it's laziness driving his desire to adopt it. I think he's looking at it as, this is the technology that's coming in, and I should understand it and participate with it and accept it. Whereas I look at it from a different point of view. Yeah, a lot of those portfolio pieces, they could have been combined in like single pages. They were sent as a slide, and if there's like showing process, you could just put like 3 or 4 pieces on the same slide, and you'd see it all there at one time. But anyway, he has a lot of really good experience. I think he'll probably be pretty good for students if he accepts the offer for. It's an adjunct class. It's not that big of a deal, but we still need the help either way. But his attitude tends to be a lot more open and accepting of things. So mine tends to not be. Well, this person didn't make anything from AI. It was all of their own work from different projects over a long period of time. So it wasn't that at all. It was just there was just a lot. It was pretty obvious it wasn't AI generated, but no. But yeah, again, my point was just that this, I was kind of feeling a little bit negative. I was looking at this portfolio. I'm like, this is huge, and then I see certain pieces in there that demonstrated to me at least a certain kind of weakness, but they could have just been really really rough sketches, and they were appropriate for the kinds of projects he was working on. But it's just kind of like made me somewhat dubious because they wouldn't be the kind of thing I would include in a portfolio. So I'm like, what's going on with this guy? What's he want? What's his angle here? And then the guy who's more open was just, he was like, oh no, I think he's really good for this and this and this and this reason. He's probably right. And so I think that's why he's more, some people are more positive about the AI stuff. I know plenty of lazy people that are also into it too. Like most conversations I've had with people about reasons why they like it or want to use it, usually it comes down to a lack of imagination. So they'll say, well, it comes up with things I never would have come up with. And I'm like, well, the same is true as if you sat down with a sketchbook. You would have come up with things on your own that the AI would not have come up with. So that's not really, a good idea. And then, so that's usually the first one of the arguments they'll make is that, the idea factory aspect of it. I'm like, but that's kind of where projects are interesting, is coming up with the idea. It's not the execution or the production that's really generally considered the best part. It's exploring the ideas, and then the other thing they'll talk about is efficiency. But that they get more ideas or more images more quickly, or rendered out more quickly. In fact, Scott Robertson, he was all about using his drawings and then having AI kind of run materials over his drawings as like a speed process. And he's retired and all that, so I kind of half get it. Where his approach is coming from, even if I 100% disagree with it. But the thing is, like, really good design isn't necessarily the result of producing more work more quickly. Like that's a kind of a very short-sighted approach to where design and ideas come from. Like at all, like it's completely inconsistent with the nature of ideas, and like a lot of where the ideas come from is that process of actually making the thing. As you're drawing and as you're painting, and it's kind of sitting in your thoughts as you're working on it. That's where the ideas come from. It's not just the fact that you've put down more drawings. It's that the drawings that you do help you create the ideas. Because it's not just, oh, I have produced a thing, therefore it exists, and it's good. I've made a lot of them. It's like saying, eating 30 McDonald's burgers is better because you've eaten more of them. Like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Well, the thing is, like, also if you kind of rely on these systems to do the things for you, you don't develop your own skills for understanding what you're working with too. You just kind of leave it to the machines to do it for you, or assume that they're doing it for you in a good way. It encourages this attitude of well, it's done and the machine says it's okay, therefore it's okay. And I don't think that's how we want to live our lives, much less our creative lives. For some reason you can still hear my voice when you exit out. I don't know. Friendly fire, that's something on your computer side. Or maybe I just have a memorable voice. I'm gonna have to run downstairs and get some more water. I got about 20 minutes left though, so maybe not. Yeah, so again, it's just like that's that ideas you don't get better ideas by just having more of them written down. Like you can write down and have a bunch of generic stuff very easily. And it might work for work in quotation marks for your project or your client or whatever, but you won't know. It's the kind of thing I like to say that you'll come to a point, no matter how good you are, and some people have gotten mad at me over saying this, because no matter how smart or how intelligent or experienced you think you are, you'll get to a point where you won't know the difference between getting what you want and accepting what you get. And you don't want to be in that spot, because you won't even know how ignorant you are or how good or bad things are. You're just accepting what's coming in front of you. And there's all kinds of other reasons to be concerned, about whether it's ethical or harmful to people or whatever. But I just think even just that basic harm that it'll do to someone's imagination who comes to rely on it, that alone is enough a reason for me to steer clear of it. No, nothing to do with it. Yeah, because you're literally you're not on your computer. I don't know. Were you watching on your phone over there, Friendly Fire? Are you in my house? Someone over on YouTube saying they can hear me after getting away from their computer. But if they're chatting in the window, then they must still be here. So unless they're in the house, you know. Maybe you haven't closed the YouTube app. Is it running in the background? You can close it and it'll still run in the background sometimes. If you're subscribed to YouTube. At least you're not in my house, so that's a relief. Because otherwise my dog would be doing a really bad job. He's kind of relaxed, so, you know. But I mean, if you're chatting in the Yahoo window, then, or the YouTube window, Yahoo, that's a site I haven't thought about in a long time. If you're chatting in the YouTube, I still have a Yahoo email, but if you're chatting in the window, then you probably got it open still. I mean, maybe you don't hear anybody, but I'm wearing headphones, so, you know, I might have missed it. Someone coming in. It's locked up, though. Oh, hot glue gun, huh? Good luck with that. Alrighty, 950, huh? Cranking along. Really like this paper. It's expensive pad, but this is some tough paper. I could watercolor on this and ink and do a bunch of other things, and won't be a problem. Which reminds me, maybe I'll do a little of that. Get the sponge out and see if we can come up with some fun textures to play with. So let's get this jar closed. Spread some of that ink around. So I'm playing around with some textures. I got some ink in this jar lid. Lighter touch. Too much ink on that. Is it a sketchbook if you're not willing to destroy your drawings? Alright, go rinse this off real quick. Be right back. Alright. Headphones. Alright. 10 minutes. Pick a number through 1 to 2. Seems very specific. Is it supposed to be a fraction or a decimal point? You need a design. About one is a star and one is round. Perfect. Or something. Hello, Sigma. Welcome aboard. Yeah, just doing some sketchbooking tonight. We'll see how it goes. I'm only going to be on for maybe a few more minutes. Did do a little book tour at the beginning. Someone had a question about portfolio development. So if you rewind back closer to the beginning, I go over the Skillful Huntsman book, which is a classic concept art book. Yeah, it's nice people showing up. It's usually pretty quiet in here, so I'm not too much of a showman. I just like to come on here and work on my little projects. when I get the chance. Hello again. Or are you saying hello to Seema there, Friendly Fire? I like this smaller tipped calligraphy pen. But hola, Sigma. I have to stop in a few minutes because my dog wants his BROCCOLLI. I think I spelled that correctly. Interesting. I finally picked up some of these Hunt 102 pen nibs, and I thought they'd be identical to the Japanese mapping ones I use because they look the same mostly. But this one's like way more potentially expressive. I can get a much thicker line out of it and still get super thin lines. So I'm still kind of getting used to it. But quite surprised with the Hunt 102. I just figured the other one I've been using was the same, just different country. It's still fine too, but I was just like surprised by how springy this is. You know? All right, 10 p.m. So I'm going to take off. It's Time for my dog to get his broccoli. These days I always make sure I put the date when I do the drawings. That way I don't forget when I did something. For a certain point you kind of forget. But yeah, time for me to go down and get the dog taken care of. And probably be back tomorrow, I think. Hopefully with a whole bunch of stuff scanned. So, a thank you to everybody that came in, and we'll talk to you next time.